Welcome to the Shout Out with Sage show. Shout Out with Sage.
Shout me out.
And that's all I gotta say. So shout out and let's go.
Okay, we're going to start this all over again. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Streaminn HUBB Radio. I'm Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. And today I have a guest who has made monumental strides for the hearing impaired. One such person he has helped is the lead singer of the iconic rock band AC/DC. He is also a musician in his own right, and he has a vocal track that's being used in Odessa's new single. What's the single? I forget what the single's name is, but it's a track there. And you can hear it on the new song for Odessa. He is an inventor, and he has done a lot of things with other musicians. And I am so glad to have Stephen Ambrose today on the show. Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Thanks,
So
nice to see you.
Nice to see you. And you have done a lot of things for musicians who have lost their hearing, correct?
That's true.
And why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, these funny things that you see in people's ears when they're performing on stage are kind of my fault. They're called in-ear monitors, and they became the Sony Walkman and the Apple AirPod and the earbuds that you see all over the place today. The story goes, I was in 1965, I was 13, and I got a chance to go in the studio and record some of my songs. And on the way after my session out, I snuck into a studio that was occupied by Johnny Cash.
Oh,
and
wow, that's amazing.
I had no appreciation of country music when I walked in,
Right.
but I snuck in and they discovered me. And
Okay.
instead of throwing me out, because I'm 13 years old, they brought me in and put the headphones on me, and I fell in love. I was just amazed at how it sounded. And I had been raised in a family where my father was a professor at Peabody and Vanderbilt of classical music and church music, and that's the only music he allowed in the house.
Okay.
And I was in the closet singing Dylan. And if I was discovered, I was in deep trouble.
Right, right.
And after hearing Johnny through the headphones, I wanted to hear that way, because I was cupping my hand and my voice around like this in order to hear myself, so I wouldn't be discovered. And I took some transistor radio headphones and put some ear molds on them that my mom had bought to keep my ears from getting infected by the YMCA pool. And I put these together, and I made the first in-ear monitors back in 1965.
Okay.
So I got a record deal with Andy Williams in the 70s. The same year he signed Jimmy Buffett and Ray Stevens. And I got to sing with all of my heroes. I got to sing with Roger McGuinn from the Byrds and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys. And
Wow.
Yeah, these were all
people.
my idols, okay?
Right.
And Stevie Wonder used to get up from the piano on stage and dance around on stage playing harmonica and fall off the edge of the stage. And even when he didn't, the audience was having a heart attack. The engineers are having a heart attack. And the monitor engineer, the guy that mixes these speakers at your feet, is screaming into the microphone, back up, back up.
Right.
Everyone can hear him but Stevie. And I'm using these things I invented on stage, and they see them and they figure, this is a way to tell Stevie how to stay away from the edge and how to give it lines during his speeches and that sort of thing. So they called me down to the studio when he was doing A Secret Life of Plants. And I go in, and stop me if I'm giving you too much information here.
Okay, I'll interrupt you. I'll segue when I need to.
So I go in the studio and I shoot this. I take a syringe and I put this impression material that they make. They take of your teeth to make
Okay,
denture.
yes, I've had that done. Yes.
I put it in both of his ears. Okay, I figure I fill this ear. Why make him wait twice as long for it to cure? I'll fill this ear. And the minute I fill this ear, he grabs my arm and screams, "Oh my God, I'm blind." Now, he was only half kidding because he's been blind since birth.
Right.
Okay. But he sees his world with his ears. And
right.
he'd never been isolated like that with, these impressions in his ears that really shut his, quote, eyes.
Well, yeah, because hearing is the only way he can see and hear and all those things. And so you're taking that away. Yeah, that must have been, oh my God, that must have been so horrendous. I
can understand how it was frightening for him.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, definitely.
And so I take them out and I drill holes in them for the sound to go through. And I put these speakers on them and I plug them into the studio feed. And I put them in Stevie's ears. But before I put them in his ears, the drummer kicked the kick drum. And when I drilled them out, there was some dust left in there. And some of the dust that was left in there shot out of the sound tube when the drummer kicked the kick drum.
Okay.
Now that's not sound, that's bicycle pump pressure.
Like pneumatic, like air pressure.
Pneumatic pressure.
Yeah, right.
You got it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I'm afraid of turning Stevie Wonder into Helen Keller.
Right. That would not be a...
He sees with his ears, and I'm just about to put this pounding pressure that shoots air. When's the last time you used an earbud and had it shoot some dust at you? Okay. But they will. they actually will. If you put some dust in there, the motions of the speaker are sealed in such a way that when you seal them in the ear, it's actually beating up your eardrum.
Okay. So is that what's causing people to have the hearing loss then?
There's a 77% increase in hearing loss because of earbuds, which was based on my invention that I was putting in Stevie's ears. So
wow. Okay.
That's something to be concerned about. I built these so you could hear on stage in the studio and protect your ears from the deafening sounds.
Right.
And they're doing their own damage unbeknownst to me or anybody else. Okay?
Yeah, at the beginning when you first invented them, correct?
At the beginning, okay? Right. And that was the moment that I realized that I needed to do something about this, okay? But that became the in-ear monitors that you see in people's ears all over the world now.
Right, yeah, you see everyone performing and they have the earpieces, yeah.
Yeah, and they're kind of, they look like, the guy's got something strange in their ears. That's
right.
They're also tremendously uncomfortable, and they do cause hearing loss. So I was touring with Stevie Wonder and Simon & Garfunkel, Diana Ross, and all these people until the 90s, when I noticed that every year I was on tour with Kiss, and every year everybody was turning up these devices needlessly because we had brought the stage volumes way down, okay? On our tour with Steve Miller, there was no sound at all on stage. So the front of house engineer has a dream of a mix because he's not getting 60% of the band volume through the vocal mic anymore. He's getting something that you can record as an album. And they did. They recorded CDs that people are listening to today. On that tour, on the subsequent tours, I noticed that I was losing my hearing loss, and everyone was turning up in spite of the fact that the volume on stage was going way down. I remember being on stage with Fleetwood Mac before this invention, and the average sound pressure level, not even the peaks, was above the threshold of pain.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So this is the environment. The audience is out there going, oh, God, I wish I could be on stage because that's where it sounds great. No, that's where you can't hear anything. It was so loud that it's deafening, okay?
Right.
And people are singing louder and blowing out their vocal cords, and their ears
Oh.
are going numb halfway through the concert. Right. Okay. So these in-ear monitors gave you the sound that you would hear in the studio.
Okay.
But they're doing this unseen damage. It's a silent killer. Okay. And when you have any speaker that loses bass unless you plug it in and seal it, it's using pneumatic pressure to make the bass that it doesn't inherently have.
Okay.
If you took good home speakers or studio speakers and put them next to your ears, you'd have more than enough bass no matter how far. You don't have to seal them. They cause a bass field around the room, around your head.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
You see what I mean? But these, you can't hear the bass until you plug it in, and then it's beating up your eardrum.
Okay. And that's causing people to lose their hearing and all those other things.
So Brian Johnson was touring with AC/DC using my first invention of in-ear monitors.
Right.
And couldn't finish the Rock or Bust tour.
Right. I was reading that he had to leave the tour because he just couldn't hear anymore. So
he lost his hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was using devices that were based on my first invention before I discovered a way to mitigate or siphon off these pneumatic pressures.
Okay.
So I reached out to him and I said, look, we've figured out how to do this in a way that's not damaging your ears. And we got lucky. It not only stops damaging your ears, but it restores the hearing loss that happened from using these uninformed devices.
So it actually restores what's been lost? That's amazing.
We just did KT Tunstall, who was touring with Hall & Oates and had to cancel her tour because she'd already gone deaf in her left ear in 2018.
Wow.
And she was starting to lose her hearing in her right ear. And she had to cancel her tour with Hall & Oates. And so I called her up. Brian asked me to. And she was able to hear for the first time in her deaf ear, 98% deaf ear,
wow,
with this device. Okay. So she played Times Square on New Year's Eve when the ball came down. She played John Lennon's Imagine. It was epic. And it's so wonderful to see these artists able to perform and their careers restored.
Well, yeah, because when you can't hear or you're only hearing with one ear, would that not affect your singing? Like
it's amazing. It's like painting with your eyes closed. Anybody that's doing that with the whole arena watching would immediately like go, these guys aren't getting what they paid for. This is not true to my fans, which was Brian Johnson's integrity. He only wanted to give his best. So
I mean, I imagine most performers, when they get up there, like they want to do the best job that they can do. I mean,
that's what the audience pays for, and that's what the artist feels good coming off the stage. And when he can't do that, it's crushing, it's heart-rendering. And his audiologist told him that if he went back on stage, he would lose all of his hearing. So he was totally deaf in one ear and not hearing well in the other ear. And in addition to being isolated from conversations in the restaurant and so forth, and from his family and from people, his career is gone. So we owe a lot to Brian because he had the faith to reach out to me and flew me down to his home in Florida, and the rest is history. We restored his hearing. We restored many artists' hearing. And the new artists that don't have any hearing loss yet are using this device, and they're listening at about 1/4 the volume that they would normally listen at.
Okay. So
and after the concert, there's no audio fatigue. They don't hide in the dressing room because they're beat to death. They come out and mingle with the people that came to the show and enjoy the results of their labors and their aesthetics. So it's been very rewarding.
Can people who aren't musicians, like, would it help them as well?
Yes, anybody that's listening to an earbud now is listening to something based on the first device that I did in 1965. And Stevie and I made that popular before the Sony Walkman. In fact, some of the engineers that worked on the Sony Walkman were musicians in Japan.
Okay. Hajimemashite, watashi wa Sage desu. I lived there for a little bit. So.
Oh, yeah. Marvelous. Well, they had, while I was making the in-ear monitors, I was also making the microphones that you put on and clip to the saxophone and the guitars. That was another one of my inventions. And I was making these for, Larry Carlton and Tom Scott and Leland Sklar, just almost all of Musicians Local 47 that were scoring the movies and doing the albums around town. And these guys heard about it. They were in Japan and they ordered my microphones for their instruments. Okay. And they came over to take delivery on it and showed me the Walkman that they were working on, that they said was based on the in-ear monitor that they saw the earlier year in LA. And I looked at it and I said, okay, you're going to sell billions of these, but you have to watch out for the hearing loss.
Right.
And they're like, what hearing loss? You know, these aren't big speakers. There's no hearing loss. And I said, well, this microphone that I made you just paid me an extra $1,000 to make it more lively, more dynamic range, it's called. Okay. Yeah, we did. Well, do you know how I did that? No. Well, I took a speaker and I put it in a tube like the ear canal next to that microphone, and I played bass through it for 20 minutes, and it stretched the microphone membrane. So if it will do that to a plastic membrane, you think it's doing to your eardrum.
Right. It's not plastic. Exactly.
They said, we didn't have this conversation. So that wasn't encouraging. Okay. But I made these in-ear monitors for Simon & Garfunkel and Dinah Ross and Al Jarreau and Stevie Wonder, and toured with all these bands, and actually got that working on stage, and had to figure out a way to get rid of this harmful pressure, which I did in the 90s. And the rest is kind of history. Now we just finished the McCartney tour of the US and the UK. And this is a product that is being co-developed with the artists that are using it.
Okay. And how does that work? It's like if you're co-developing it with them?
Well, it's a new science. Nobody has ever noticed that sound, acoustic pressures, and pneumatic pressure, like bicycle pump or in your car engine, can coexist in the same space, okay? Which is what happens when you seal an earbud in your ear. You not only get the sound, but you get the pneumatic pressure because the speaker is a piston, okay?
Okay.
So it's actually a science that we've uncovered, not just inventing a gadget. And the application of it with each person is new, and it not only restores any hearing that they've lost, and we don't know to what extent it's doing that, but it's enough that they usually cry if they have hearing loss.
Well, I would imagine, I would imagine that, yes.
It's quite emotional. And so the feedback we get guides the development of the product towards better and better applications of it.
Right. And to segue a little bit, you're a musician, and you have a vocal track that's on the new single "Light of Day" by the EDM group Odessa. How did that come about for you?
Well, I started, performing in coffee shops in the 70s, and or excuse me, in the 60s, and like I said, I got signed by Andy Williams and Barnaby Records in I think it was 69 or 70, and I put out a folk album, which was the in the fashion of the time, and it did moderately well, top 30s, soft rock hits, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But in using my in-ear monitors and being called into the studio with Stevie, I stopped doing my music and started doing the in-ear monitors, which was a long road to get the sound companies to start to use, because it meant that they didn't have all of this revenue from the speakers that they put at your feet and all the 10,000 pounds of amplifiers and stuff that they no longer need to ship around. So it wasn't real popular at first, even though the artists loved it. The sound companies were like, go away. Okay. So it took about 12 years to change the industry. So I wasn't doing very much of my own music at the time. So fast forward, through decades of doing the Grammys and the Oscars and the Super Bowl and introducing this to MTV and the first music videos.
Right.
My wife is like, wait, we met in the studio. I'm a recording engineer. When's the last time you've cut anything? And it's like, okay, you want me to cut something? Well, fortunately, Odessa is releasing this fabulous new album. One of the songs from it, I looked yesterday, and it's only been out for a very short time, and it's already 40 million downloads.
Right. Yeah. I was looking it up when I was looking at, your work and everything. And yeah, it's super popular right now. So.
Well, these guys.
The video for it is amazing. It's this animated video, and they also have, I don't know how to say his name. They have another singer on board of that track as well. And the video itself is super interesting.
They're amazing. I mean, for Apple's launch of their iPhone 10 and some of their recent technology, they used Odessa for their technology. So any artist that's used by Apple to launch their technology is an immediate, big deal. And these guys, I found out, were a huge deal all by themselves. They didn't even need that. Okay.
Right.
So
I love EDM, so I know who Odessa is.
I had no clue. And their manager calls me up, and they don't know that I've invented the in-ear monitors and so forth. They were working on the final track of their album, and they wanted something that, I guess, put some heart into it or put a different bent to the album.
Right.
And they went through these old albums, like this is a 1970 vinyl. Okay.
They did some research. Yes.
How obscure was that?
They did some digging. Definitely did some work and some digging for that.
I basically won the lotto without buying a ticket. Okay, that's how fortunate I was in this.
Yes.
And they had this little album that I launched, which is, for me, had gotten like looking at old high school annuals. It's like, oh wow, I did that. How old was I?
How old were you when you did that song?
I wrote that song when I was 16.
Wow. And
so
here we are in 2000.
I'm 70 now. Okay. I have a T-shirt that says, "It's weird to be the same age as old people." Okay. Because I don't feel 70. I feel
exactly.
I feel like I did when I was just in the
16.
studio. Yeah, 16. But they found this obscure album, and this cutoff of it, and "Reach the Light of Day" was the chorus for this song, which formed the basis for their feeling and theme about this whole album, which is, more than flattering. It's almost humbling to the point of embarrassment. Okay, it's like, wait, you guys are the real thing.
Well, yeah, especially after all this time, to have that and on their song, and it's like so sort of full circle to me. It is. It's one of those things that has come around, and since this album has done so well, and the single is just monstering, a lot of the artists that I'm restoring the hearing for have gone, "I had no idea that you're a musician. I didn't know you sang." Okay, because it doesn't come up, and so now we're collaborating on awesome
on music together, which is quite rewarding, because doing the in-ear monitors sort of replaced my career. And
well, I would imagine that's so time consuming. It's an invention and it's science, and I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are thankful that you didn't continue with the music, and you went and did the in-ear monitor. So I mean, I'm sure a lot of people are very thankful for that. But yeah, you did, I guess, sacrifice a music career for that, or maybe
Well,
not. Maybe
it was
not.
a lot of fun. Okay.
Yes.
And at the time I felt my music was undeveloped. So
Okay.
having toured with all these people and been able to engineer and learn from them,
Right.
I would like to think my music is more informed now.
Well, yes, you traveled and worked with some of the greats of the greats, the iconic people. So hopefully that rubbed off on you a little bit. And this is Shout Out with Sage. You've worked with so many people. So is there anyone that has been, instrumental, like helpful to you that you would like to give a shout out to?
Well, of course, the whole in-ear monitor and personal audio field would not exist if it weren't for Stevie Wonder. Okay. He was the kindest, most fun, and most engaging. And what's interesting is that he had at the time, was, I think, the most awarded Grammy nominee.
Okay.
This is before Michael sort of bought the farm.
Right.
And so you have these innovations, both musically and studio-wise, that are just unsurpassed from Stevie. Okay. So his perception acoustically was making up for being blind. I can tell you that. Okay. I used to tell him if he kept beating me in air hockey, I was going to call up the tabloids and tell him he was peaking, because he was merciless. He would not give up. He would beat you 20 games in a row.
Wow.
And it's like, mercy, and I know you're peaking. Okay. There's no way you can win this air hockey over and over again without some form of sight. Okay. That was my joke with him.
Right.
Well, his intelligence about sound was amazing. And he would ask me for things which were undefined in the audiobooks or in the acoustic science.
Can you give us like an example of something like that?
Well, how is it you can take him into a room and be, quote, leading him? He's on your arm.
Right.
But the truth is you're following him, and every single time he goes to the prettiest girl in the room. Tell me, how do you do that? I can't even do that with sight. Okay. So
he had some skill. He had some skill.
There's an enhanced perception there. Okay. And he would ask me for things acoustically, and in panting from here to there, trying to deliver it to him, I learned about sound, things that you couldn't learn in college, that no one taught. Okay. Well, I remember on our first tour, we did Radio City Music Hall. I'm over at the side, and he's out performing, and I'm in awe. And all of a sudden, he calls me out on stage and introduces me as the inventor of this technology.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
How gracious. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
How abundant, how thinking of others, which is the man that I toured with off and on for 10 years. So his support of in-ear monitors and telling Diana Ross and telling everybody else about it really gave it a chance in the industry, despite the fact that the sound companies were going, go away.
Now, well, of course, money and time and changing systems is always, not really something I think.
Not a prospect. It's like, I have to buy all new gear. Are you kidding me? I just paid this off. That was their attitude.
Of course, they're not going to be happy about any of that. So
it's very understandable.
Well, it's all about the money, right? And the bottom line. But people are losing their hearing, so I think that should be a little more important.
Well, but even if you want to be benevolent, if you want to be generous, you got to be wealthy to do that. Okay, right. And we're fooling with their bottom line. So, but now they are actually the savior of the industry now. My recent efforts are funded and supported and invested in by the top engineers in the sound community. And we have a team that's developing this not only for the artists, but for everybody that listens to their music. So now we will have earbuds
like the ones I have.
designed in conjunction with Paul McCartney's front of house engineer, AC/DC's front of house engineer, the community of engineers of the sound company are the ones that are testing this, and their feedback from themselves and their artists is going into this. And there's a new version of it every month, and it's very exciting.
Right. How does someone, if someone's experiencing hearing loss, is there a way to reach you, or is there a way to, do you have a website? Can you tell people how to reach out to you?
Well, interestingly enough, as I mentioned in my email to you, I'm so on stage or in the lab like 29 hours a day that I don't do any social media yet. Okay.
Right.
The current website of www.asiustechnologies.com does not show any of the recent research over the last 5 or 7 years. Okay. So it's been word of mouth, but if you are a musician and you do have the onset of hearing damage, we have an early adopters program that you can participate in.
Oh,
okay?
Wow, that's wonderful. Yes.
And now we've expanded it to new musicians that don't want to go deaf playing every night on stage, because there's absolutely no call for it. There's no reason why you should not be able to enjoy your performance and play as loud as you want to.
Just rock on, right?
Yeah, it is. It's not less is more. It's more is fine. Okay, because that is the power in rock and roll. And when we're over in Europe and the regulations are such that, well, we don't allow it above this level, you can see the lack of impact on the audience, and all of a sudden you've restrained the relationship between the performers and the audience. Well, we have not only made this to protect the hearing and facilitate hearing more, of the artists on stage, but we've developed hearing protectors for the audience to use the same technology that restored Ian Johnson's career, and they can use it at this concert or any other one that they go to, and listen at whatever volume they want to, without it sounding like this. It's right now, you go to a concert, either can't hear for a few hours or days afterwards, or you can listen to the concert like this.
Right, when you have when you're protecting your ears. Right,
you're protecting your ears, but it sounds terrible. Okay. Well, this technology, it sounds just the same, but at whatever volume you want to put it at, and it's comfortable. So we've not only restored hearing and the ability to perform at whatever volumes fit the moment and the music for the artist, we've done it for the audience.
Cool. Well, I want to thank you so much. You had such a great story. I mean, I just think it's wonderful that you're helping all these people regain their hearing or protect their hearing. When I first found out about you, I didn't even know anything like this existed. So I want to thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us today. And so hope to hear more things about all the wonderful things you're inventing and helping people with.
I'm delighted to meet you. It's very kind of you to be interested in what we're doing.
Right.
And we'll see you as we expand.
Right. Well, we are, it is Streaminn HUBB Radio. We have musicians, on this, musicians. I interview musicians. So I would imagine that this would be informative and very helpful to most of those people. So, yes.
Thank you for the opportunity, Sage. Very gracious.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thanks. Okay. Bye.
Welcome to the Shout Out with Sage show. Shout Out with Sage.
Shout me out.
And that's all I gotta say. So shout out and let's go.
Hi, everyone. This is Streaminn HUBB Radio. I am Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. And hi, everyone. Welcome to Streaminn HUBB Radio. I'm Sage Stevens, the host of Shout Out with Sage. And today, one of my guests is a musician, multi-instrumentalist. He's a composer, an orchestrator. He's working with the new wave 80s band, Culture Club, if any of us remember. And I want to welcome to the show, John Koener. Hi, John. How are you today?
Hi, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Thank you again for having me. And I just want to say it was such a pleasure to listen to Steven talking about his inventions and his stories about Stevie Wonder and Brian Johnson. What
Right.
a pleasure. And I have to get myself a pair of in-ears.
Yes, I'm glad that you caught the end of that interview because, as I said, I interview musicians all the time, and I'm sure a lot of people like yourself aren't aware or familiar with the great technology that he's invented. Steve, for those of you just tuning in, we're talking to Stephen Ambrose, who was just on before John, and he is the inventor of an in-ear monitor system. And a lot of musicians lose their hearing, so it's a great thing that he's invented.
I had no idea of the restorative power of his newer version.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing. So I can't believe that. Yeah, I didn't know that so many musicians lost their hearing. I mean, it does make sense because you have all that sound all the time and you're wearing the things in your ears and stuff. So it does make sense. So what about you? How did you get into music?
Well, my love of music stems from my early childhood. I had parents who were in love with music, everything from orchestral compositions to rock music turned up to 11 and everything in between. I have a lot of experience in playing jazz. I played in a classical ensemble of contemporary music, and I have a love for just the notes themselves, harmony, music, chords, and then the sounds that we use to make them.
And what are some of the projects that you're working on right now?
Well, right now I'm in the middle of a few movies that have an orchestral score that is composed by me and my writing partner Roy Hay from Culture Club.
Okay.
And we also have a television show that we recently finished that is for the BBC.
Okay.
It's kind of a real estate selling reality TV show.
Like sort of like a Selling Sunset.
Yeah, you're familiar with that kind of show.
Yes, I love that show.
Sounds like The Apprentice meets Succession, but we love it. And our friend PK, husband of Dorit Kemsley from the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills,
Okay.
he is the star. And we're very excited about that.
Okay. And I read that you did some music for an Apple TV. What was that?
Yeah, as well, a movie that we worked on with director Paul Boyd was released today, actually, on Apple TV. The movie is called We Are Gathered Here Today.
Okay.
Yes, we are so happy because it started off as a project that might need music for one scene, and through the magic of our friend Nico Goldfarb, that he was able to tell Danny Huston, the producer and star, hey, maybe a few more scenes with music. And once we just started getting the ball rolling, there was no way to stop it. The whole movie has music now that's just really emblematic of the deep emotion that you feel in experiencing loss, and especially during the time of COVID.
Right. So let's sort of delve into that a little bit. So the movie is about loss, correct? So when you're looking, do you look at the scenes and then compose from the scenes they give you? Are the scenes already edited? Like, how does all that work as a composer for a film or a TV show?
Well, sometimes it's different, but in this case, we got the movie in advance and we were able to watch the whole movie with no music. And sometimes you might get temp music that comes in before to show what the director is visualizing,
right,
but they sent us a few classical pieces.
Right?
Sorry?
To give you like a tone and feel of what they're going for, right?
Exactly, yeah. So they want us to hear what they want. If they don't know how to write music, how are they supposed to express what they want specifically? Right. So they just sent us a few iconic classical pieces and said, we really love the emotion behind these. Can you capture that? And in combination with watching the movie, we're able to feel what's necessary. And from my perspective, I really resonate with organic instruments, piano, anything orchestral, acoustic guitar. So to be able to mostly
what's your favorite instrument?
Of those, I would have to say the French horn. Just if you think of the intro to Jurassic Park, just that mellow brass sound it can be scarce and calling, or it can be epic and signifying heroism. So I happen to love that, but there's no French horn in this movie, sadly. But I was very excited to sink my teeth into something that was expressing these emotions through that palette, creating that sound of people losing someone through a video camera. That's an inorganic experience through organic sounds.
Just to give people a little information, I did watch the trailer that you sent me. So We Are Gathered Here Today, the movie that John composed for, it's about someone that was in the hospital and they're on their deathbed, and because of COVID, no one can visit them, correct? I did get that right. So everyone's like, it's a Zoom call basically, correct?
Yeah, the whole movie is basically a Zoom call, but it's filmed with professional cameras and lighting and professionally mixed.
Right, exactly. And how did that opportunity come to you?
Well, like anything in Hollywood, friends of friends, Roy and Paul have recently met through a mutual friend, and Paul was a music director or a music video director, and through our experiences of being, first of all, he's a Culture Club fan, so being able to work with him was, kind of a dream. And secondly, we, as the band Culture Club, me and Roy as well orchestrated a song that Boy George sang. It's the theme of the movie and the end credit song for the film.
Okay, amazing. And why did you get into music? Like, I know you mentioned that your parents and stuff, but was it just something you had to do? Like, it was like deep within you wanting to get out? Was there anything else that appealed to you other than music?
I mean, a combination of everything, especially other things appealing to me, but I recognized an innate ability to understand and hear, not just music theory, but to hear a small shaker in the background of a giant orchestral thing, and there's one small thing happening in the background and nobody hears it, or somebody drops a piece of paper and I might be able to notice it and nobody else in the room can. So after a few experiences like that, I kind of got the hint, maybe let's invest all our time and effort into making this our number one priority. I could make a career out of this.
Okay, great. And what advice would you give someone who wants to have a career like as a composer in film or in movies or something like that?
Well, to have a job in film and in media composition is different than, you know, what I do. I am a huge fan of John Williams, and once he said this quote, and I feel like I live by that motto. And it's don't strive to be a great film composer, strive to be a great composer.
Right.
You know, try to write great music. Don't try to get jobs writing for movies and TV. You know, I recently was contacted by a few people who'd heard my music independently and said, we could tell it was you. So
Right.
can you help us out with something? And I felt so complimented that they recognized my
Yeah,
specific sound.
right. And what is your sound? Like, is there a certain, like, how would you describe it?
I would say a combination of all over the place and just the right thing.
All over the place, and then
You know, exactly what you want and just a little bit more.
Okay. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but so do you have an agent or a manager? And if so, did you get that right away, or did you work a little bit and then eventually got those things? Or
Well, I have an independent manager through Nico Network, is Nico Goldfar. And other than that, I'm in a tight circle with Roy. We have our organization called Hammer Sound Studios. And through that, we really cultivate our scoring for television and movies outside of any kind of band stuff. So, I'm very lucky to be in a position where Roy and I are partners in writing and working on things like working with songwriters to working on movies to working on their own songs to making an opening for their show. They have a show tomorrow in Costa Mesa, and I'm excited to go and see that orchestral opening played again in the Costa Mesa Amphitheater. So there's all sorts of different opportunities that we do together, but I'm very grateful.
is there anyone you would like to give a shout out to, since this is Shout Out with Sage?
I'd like to give a shout out to Roy and to George and to Mikey, the guys in Culture Club, and especially to Nico Goldfar, our friend and collaborator.
How did you get the opportunity with Culture Club? How did that come about?
You know, that's just another case of when I look at it, they heard my sound and said, can we have a bit more of this? I'll have a bit of this and a bit of this.
But did you meet, how did they find you? How did they?
Somehow they stumbled upon my music, and through friends and word of mouth, they said, hey, there's this kid who kind of sounds like he knows what he's doing. Is what I heard, they said.
I see. And what inspires you when you do your music?
I think there's a lot of places I draw inspiration from, but I think mostly it's the loss of my father really gives me a lot of emotional depth and understanding. I felt so much, and when I watch a scene, I resonate. I can sometimes come to tears, and I just feel those emotions that they're trying to get across. So in a way, he told me once that a good artist cannot be good without suffering. And it's so ironic that I feel like he gave me that ability.
I do somewhat agree with that. I don't think that, as an actor or a musician or any type of creative, if if you haven't experienced some type of pain or loss, I mean, you need to experience things in order to express them. So
yeah, and especially channeling those things through positive outlets and venting them in a healthy way.
Well, yes, of course.
Like writing music.
Right. Not to take your grief and your pain and, maybe take a sledgehammer to a car. Probably not the best thing, right?
Maybe a little bit.
Well, I mean, if the car is like, yours and you want to do that, hey, feel free. But
for a quick reno.
Right. Is there anyone else you would like to give a shout out to?
Maybe just to my family watching. Hey, love you guys. Your combined social medias.
Right. And how do people find out about you? Do you have social media, website?
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely reach me individually at John Koener Music on every handle on Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. Okay. And I'm working with Roy on a lot of projects, and you can reach us both at hammersoundstudios.com.
Oh, I have watched your TikTok videos. Those are fun. How do you how long does it take you to do one of those? So just to let everyone know.
One of them? I mean,
explain what you do first. Explain what you do first. And then.
For sure. I grew up listening to rock music, especially classic rock guitar players like Eddie Van Halen and Joe Perry from Aerosmith and Ace Frehley from Kiss. So I've internalized a lot of those songs, Jimmy Page's solos, all sorts of stuff. And now, after having gone to music school and worked on classical things that have all the notes, they use all the notes, to use a few notes really fancy on a guitar for a guitar solo, especially growing up playing guitar and now coming back to it after having not played guitar, I just like to give myself a morning challenge and say, hey, I heard this song that I know on the radio yesterday. Let's pick up the guitar, listen for 15 minutes, get the solo down, and take it maybe 2 or 3 times and pick the best one and post it. And I've just, enjoyed it so much. I've been doing it every day for maybe 2 months, 3 months now.
Yes, I've watched a few of them. They're really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love the TikToks. So, okay. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go today?
I'd love everybody check out We Are Gathered Here Today, now on Apple TV. Okay.
Well, thank you so much. It was great having you and chatting with you. And
thank you for having me. It was an honor.
Oh, no worries. No worries. And so we'll see you soon, and I'll check out the rest of your movies and other things that you're up to in the near future.
Yeah, please have me back again.
Okay. Thanks, John. We'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Welcome to the Shout Out with Sage show. Shout Out with Sage.
Shout me out.
And that's all I got to say. So shout out and let's go.